ancestors who broke the chains of colonialism to reclaim the dignity of our beloved continent. But African Liberation Day is not just a look back at history. It is actually a powerful look forward into the future. It is a celebration of our rich cultural heritage, our unbreakable resilience, and our shared destiny as Africans. Today, we celebrate the unstoppable spirit of one Africa, united, thriving, and shaping the future of the world. Let us make this auditorium energetic. Let us consume all the energies that we can consume in this very auditorium. And then I shout, Uhuru, and I want you to respond, freedom. Uhuru! 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 Yes, we are going to celebrate our freedom as Africans. My name is Ruth Abedwa-Kwansa, and it is my pleasure to guide all of us through this historic occasion as the Master of Ceremonies. At this very juncture, we'll take a presentation from the cultural troupe, Akumapa cultural troupe. Let us clap for them. Hello. Okay. Thank you. The Akumapa cultural troupe is from Elmina, and they are here to give us a performance. Akumapa. Thank you very much. Shall we give them a round of applause as they end? We can do it better. We can. At this point, we'll have to invoke the spirits here to give us a very successful ceremony. And to do that for us, we'll call on a PhD student to be precise, from the Center for African and International Studies, whose area of research is in indigenous African knowledge and African games. He's in the person of Mr. Achu Dagadu. Let's clap for him.
Is it the sunrise according to Cape Coastland? I don't know. Is it the sunrise? Area of sunrise? I don't know. But mostly we have our way of prayer. So I'm a Voltonian. Yes. Ayo, my doggo, sir. Eh, my doggo, kakakade. Eh, my yo, my poom. Amekata lagba tu amafi re childa machavolumi aye machavolu kakade bayo w volu kakan w du boy machavolu yema kosgavi machavolu kakase yema yo George Padmon na sikaka Esia James mayo Frank Fanon, Rota Rudy, Mayoka said, and Job, Mayoka, Nick, Mayoka said, Nas, coming Kruma, Machavoloka Kamulado. Eva Chavoloka, Mofomlana, Patrice Lumumba, Nasi Kakakam, Julius Nyerere, Nasi. Heli Selassie nasi kakakang Ames Sekuture nasi Medi Bukaita mayo kakakang Gamen Abdul Nasser nasi kakakasem Kanet Kawunda nasi kakakang Augustina Noto nasi kakakasem Jomo Kenyatta nasi Mandela nela gwetuma mwera kukuno nela kutuma wungula do Kabra mayo kakasem Michel nasi kakakang Siviko nasi Thomas Sankara nasi kakasem Subuku nasi Kimati nasi kakakang Mataya nasi kakakasem Kuti nasi kakakang Winter nasi kakasem Amina nasi kakakang Asantuwa nasi mayo Queen Tatubetu nasi kakasem Tabman Harriet Tabman nasi Win Mandela na mikata mi nasi kakasem ngwe to kaka ngma khafio agbanwa ka miama vuo ka mi wo ye mi la miama Africa du correct ye gun so na mi de na chapani ya pokka Yo, Hamofodo, a hacker per change a high. Gaka, Yama Futo, Kalemianchi, Yenya, Aya Vuo, O Babajam, a mortgage tomb, Bab Miawe, Miamatana is do, Kakamuni Wala, Matamacha do. Miawenya, Kalampoto, Zampoto, and Miawe one Unona, Miama Jenya. Ye gba mien kudom mi atogba oji mi le childe Ye we wodi ala kwo de kaka we agbamento npon dudu. Nyama yi nwe kemi wo. Bledari na mi de. Agba bi kan kudomaji. Kaka nku edun mi leji e ya ho he nya no ketonchi. Avwe kemi wo afiju avo makau. Ava pata de ko. Ava galeji wo yim. La gbama nku edun mi le Pan African Liberation Day celebration jide. Bada mi nkudo mu jiba mi ajo mi ankoko mi asemi amankoko ado jijo. Ala ba fo makau. Ta mi akomi ba ha. Andure katoji kan. Ahama podo. Katoto nya ha. Nyawe fafana foklami kan. Ajo jagaja mo. Agaja ma batome. Ta mi awola mi atonye fafa. Kan. Ma guna so ni kan.
Can we give him a resounding applause? He just invoked the gods of our ancestors. If I didn't hear anything at all, I heard him call on Dubois. Let's give him another applause. He deserves it. For every occasion of this caliber, there is an important person who chairs the ceremony, and today is no exception. At this point, I have the singular honor to introduce the chairperson for the African Liberation Day celebration 2026. We all can see from the posters that the Vice Chancellor for the University of Cape Coast was supposed to chair this ceremony. But as we all know, as a man of his caliber, his calendar is full of activities and events, and so he cannot be present today as we all expected. And we all also know that when the king is unable to attend an important ceremony, he sends his most trusted general to be in his stead. And today we have the Dean for the School of Development Studies, whose area of research is in extractive industries, so mining, forestry, and so on, to represent the Vice Chancellor for the University of Cape Coast. And he is no other than Professor Emmanuel Tenkran. Can we give him an applause as we listen? So while we acknowledge his presence, I would also want us to recognize a few dignitaries present with him on the stage. We have Rabbi Halevi, the Pan-African Executive Director and Convener, Pan-African Diaspora Coalition, here with us. We also have Julia Lynn Walker from GPAM with us. Janice Badu Krag is also here. Janice Badu Krag. Janna Bellows, and she told me I should refer to her as Ajwa. Janna, I didn't forget to do that. So Janna is also a representative from Krag, and she's responsible for education and awareness. Also with us today is Professor Simon Mariwa, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, here with us. We have the Mama of One Africa with us today, Mama Okufu. Mama, you are welcome. Kofi Brain, co-convener of Krag, is also here with us today. Janice Badu of Krag is here with us, and Zipporah, Krag Financial Secretary, is present in this hall. You're all welcome. So So at this point, we'll listen to the welcome address from the chairperson for this celebration. Please, let's give him a resounding applause.
Colleagues on the high table, other colleague professors from sister faculties in a place, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not very good at giving speeches, so I'll just raise a few issues and then maybe go back, and then we'll all think about them as the program progresses. I want to find out, if we say an African, because we are talking about global African. If we say an African, what do we mean by the classification an African? Is it because of our skin color? Is it because of our nationality, that's countries that we come from? Or is it because of our philosophy of life? Okay, that makes us Africans. Well, Peter Tosh once said that it doesn't matter where you come from, as long as you have, you have a black skin, you're an African. But is that enough? The fact that you have, a particular skin color, is that enough to make you an African? This is something we should think about. We are also talking about reparative justice. My question is, in what form will the reparative justice be? I mean, what are we expecting to get after all the effort that has gone? I mean, I'm not in any way, by any stretch of imagination, undermining, the actions of, successive governments and then what finally happened at the UN recently. I'm not in any way, ridiculing it or undermining it, but I just want us to think about, a few things. Okay, so in what form are we expecting the justice to come? Is it in terms of money? So are we expecting that somebody will transfer some amount of money to us? Or are we expecting that we are going to be given respect moving on? We are going to be respected as Africans and as, with the dignity that we require, okay? Or with the dignity that is our right as human beings? Or is it that we are now going to be given opportunities to do other things, that we couldn't have done? Okay, so in what form would the reparative justice come? And would it be enough to at least equal, the injustice and and the suffering of the transgressed? Okay, those Africans who went through that experience themselves, and those of us who are also, feeling the aftershocks of those experiences. Would that reparative justice that we are going to get, or we are fighting for, is it going to be at least enough to the suffering and the pain? Well, we need to think about them. I'm raising all these questions because finally I would ask a very pertinent question. Okay, so please just bear with me as I move on. Now, when we have that reparative justice, how are we going to use it? In whichever form, whether it's in the form of, let's say, resources or money, in the form of respect, in the form of opportunities. How are we going to use it? How are we going to use it to better our situation? Are we simply going to pick whatever it is and then just squander it and then go back to where we were? And then complain that, you see, because of what they did to us, that is why we are not able to do A, B, C. Or are we going to take it and then turn it around to improve our lot? Now, is it going to reflect in our actions? Okay, are we going to take particular actions that will lead to an improvement in our lot or not? Is it going to be in the way we interact with ourselves, the way we interact with ourselves? Is it going to improve beyond what it is now? In fact, in the speech of President Mahama that has been distributed to us. There's an expression, and it's interesting. There's an expression by a quotation from Nelson Mandela, and I'll quote. He says, "Our human compassion binds us the one to the other, not in pity or patronizingly, but as human beings who have learned how to turn our common suffering into hope for the future." And is it not ironic? Looking at what is happening in South Africa now, and then the first, real democratically elected president of South Africa, having made this statement some time ago, and what is happening in South Africa now. That's why I asked the question: if we have that reparative justice, whichever form is going to come to us, how are we going to use it? Are we prepared? Are we prepared now to take advantage of whatever it is to move on? Or we are going to behave the same way like it's happening in South Africa now, where public servants in countries were taxed. Taxed from their salaries, and then the money given to the Libation in South Africa. And now suddenly, that same country, I'm not going to mention Ghana, that same country, citizens there are being brutalized openly in the streets and all that. So the question is, so when people fought for freedom in South Africa, what have they made out of the freedom that they have? And that's why I asked this question. So if we have that reparative justice that we are fighting for, are we really prepared to put it to good use? Thank you very much, and let's have a fruitful deliberation. Thank you.
Are we really prepared? Thank you very much, Prof, for this welcome address. At this point, we'll call on the Director for the Center for African and International Studies, Dr. Mario Nisbet, to give us the vision of the center. Let's welcome him as he comes. Oh, we can do better. He's the brain behind all this.
Thank you, Madam MC. All protocol observed. Welcome, everyone. We are standing on the most consequential ground on earth for this conversation today. Welcome to the 2026 African Liberation Day celebration, hosted by the Center of African and International Studies, partnership with GPAM, Craig, the Real Africa Foundation, and Panafest Foundation. African Liberation Day, observed the 25th of May, honors freedom struggle that did not begin with the founding of the African Organization of African Unity in 1963. It stretches back from centuries of resistance to slavery, colonialism, and genocide. The OAU gave the struggle institutional form and continental voice. This afternoon, we gather not merely to remember, but to reckon. Our theme is Global Africa, Reparative Justice, and International Law. I want to take you through history that make reparative justice a moral and intellectual necessity, and to share the work that this center is doing to place Global Africa, UCC, at the heart of what comes next. We must begin with a word. The word slave does not come from Africa. It comes from the word Slav, the name of an Eastern European people who were for centuries among the primary victims of enslavement in ancient and medieval times. Until the 1800s, the majority of people held in bondage across recorded history were Europeans and Asians. There were millions of Europeans enslaved across North Africa. Slavery in its origin was not an institution centered on blackness. What the transatlantic slave trade introduced was something new, an ideology that made blackness itself the marker of slavery and bondage. The transatlantic slave trade changed all this. Between 12 to 15 million Africans were taken from the continent over 4 centuries. But the numbers, though staggering, are not the full story. The deeper crime was not only the horrors of chattel slavery, but the ideology invented to justify it. European enslavers faced a moral problem. There were people who knew that they were enslaving other human beings, like themselves. Their solution is to declare that Africans were not fully human. The doctrine of Africans as subhuman was not cause of the slave trade. It was manufactured in service of the slave trade. And once manufactured, it spread everywhere. That ideology did not stay on the plantation. It traveled. It entered science, law, medicine, philosophy, religion. It became the lens which the entire world was taught to see Africans. The view of African as less than fully human, as primitive, inferior, at the bottom of the human hierarchy, is not an ancient prejudice. It is a modern invention, born in the 15th century to justify profit, and is the direct ancestor of every form of anti-black racism existing on the planet today. When an African nation treated as incapable of governing themselves, when African knowledge is dismissed as being not real knowledge, that is the transatlantic slave trade still speaking. The chain may be gone, but the ideology remains. The Trinidadian scholar Eric William showed us in his landmark work, Capitalism and Slavery, that the Industrial Revolution built on the backs of enslaved Africans, the profits of the slave trade and the plantation economies it sustained were primarily engineered of the capital accumulation that funded British industrialization. And then the logic turns more devastating. The Industrial Revolution, built on enslaved labor, generated a capital for industrial power and made Europe colonialism greater in scale. The wealth extracted from African people in the Western Hemisphere and financed the machinery to use to colonize the continent and its people that were stolen from. Africa did not suffer slavery, then colonialism, as 2 separate wombs. The second womb was funded by the profit of the first. The colonization of Africa was financed in no small part by Africans themselves, by the labor of the stolen children. This is not metaphor, it is history. It is political economy. It is the foundation of the world we have inherited. There is a lie still taught, still believed, that European brought Africa into the global system. That before contact, Africa was isolated, primitive, waiting to be connected to civilization. Let us bury this here in Cape Coast today. The Kingdom of Bono, one of the early states in what is now Ghana today, was trading gold to the Mali Empire before most European nations ever reached West Africa. Mali gold and salt traded connected the Sahara to North Africa, from there Europe and Asia. Ghana was already fully integrated in a global network. what the transatlantic slave trade and colonialism actually did was not connect Africa to the world. They actually reposition Africa in the world. From autonomous trading partners to captive suppliers of raw resources, from sovereign state to colonial possessions. Africa was not brought into globalization, it was restructured to service globalization. The Nigerian historian Joseph Inakuri extended the work of William to explain how colonialism projected this project. England needed vast markets to absorb industrial output. Colonialism helped create these markets. And crucially, they destroyed the independent economic capacity of colonized people all over the world in order to buy products from the UK. The UK is not large enough to absorb the amount of things that they are producing. So they need some place to send those products. Gold Coast was not cut off of international trade. It was deliberately positioned within it, from a sovereign exporter on its own terms to providers of raw resources. Gold, cocoa, timber, extracted, shipped to the north, produced, processed there, resold back to Africa and the world 5-10 times the price. As Walter Rodney argued, Africa was not left behind, it was actively underdeveloped. The production capacity dismantled, the market captured, the institutions destroyed to serve the enrichments of European and others. And young people, that restructure has not ended. The price our country pay for goods made from African raw resources reflects that. The debt burden of African countries, governments reflect that. The inequality we see around us is not an accidental failure of Africa. It is a legacy of a system designed exactly to produce this outcome. Look around you. What does it look like? We are now in the final destination of the system. A world order built on unlimited extraction of human beings, of labor, land, of atmosphere itself. And it cannot sustain itself. The climate crisis is not a natural disaster. It is a consequence of an economic model that treats the earth as a resource to consume rather than a living system to be sustained. And it is Africa, the continent, contribute least to the destruction that is paying the highest price in terms of drought and environmental disaster. So when we trace the chain, the slave trade manufactured African subhumanity. The enslaved labor that built the Industrial Revolution, the capital that funded colonialism, the colonialism that repositioned Africa as captive supplier, and the extractive economy now threatening the planet. The demand for reparative justice is not a grievance, it's a logical conclusion. Ghana had placed itself at the forefront of this conversation. President Mahama has made reparative justice a central commitment. Ghana co-sponsored a United Nations resolution and a transatlantic slave trade, moving reparations from the margins of international discourse to the floor of the world deliberation body, the United Nations. Reparative justice means more than money. True material restitution is inseparable from genuine repair. It means the return of cultural artifacts. It means formal apology of historical wrongs. It means the restoration of knowledge system that were deliberately destroyed. And above all, it means the reconstructing of the world economy, that Africa no longer a captive supplier of supply, designed against the interests of Africans, because without the structural change, every other form of repair is incomplete. Reparative justice and sustainable world are not two different goals. They are the same. Cape Coast is not incidental to the conversation. It is central. There is no more powerful, more legitimate, or more necessary place on earth for this work to happen. CAIS, the Center for African and International Studies, was founded with a vision larger than the initial form. Institution of continental and global standing, rooted in the community, answerable to history. We teach close to 12,000 students annually. Virtually in the entire undergraduate population of UCC, every UCC student encounter Africa through our classrooms. That is not a small thing. That is a civilizational commitment. We are already connected. The African Studies program across the US, the Caribbean, Europe, and Asia. To the diaspora, from the Panafest Colloquium Secretariat to the global reparation movements, scholarly work we convene within the days of the Ghana resolution of the United Nations. Conversations have happened, and it continues to happen here. We are planning, or we intend to build, a heritage resource center that gives hundreds of thousands of annual visitors to Cape Coast and Elmina Dungeon Castles, which what exists nowhere else in the region. Not just when their ancestors departed, but the communities, the history, the knowledge system those ancestors carry with them to the new world. We are expanding our reparation series into a program, research and engagement into a reparation center, making Cape Coast credible African institutional home for the global reparations movement that is gathering force across the world. Our ambition is to not simply grow. It is to decolonize and indigenize this university, through it, and the world in general. To build an institution where African knowledge is not supplementary, but is the foundation. Where the generations graduating from the university carry not just degrees, but genuine African understanding to African problems to provide for African solutions. The transatlantic slave trade, born at the dawn of the modern era, triggered a global shift. That shift began unraveling with the formal abolition of slavery in the 19th century. A start, though the economic and ideological architecture it built remained firmly in place. Decolonization in the mid-20th century took the next step, ending direct rule through Africa, the Caribbean, and Asia. We are now witnessing a deeper movement. BRICS nations have already surpassed the collective wealth of the G7. So when we speak of the BRIC nation, we are talking about Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And when we speak of the G7, we are speaking about the wealthiest Western nations. So for the last 500 years, the European powers were considered to be the dominant force on the planet. This is shifting. The Sahel is asserting sovereignty. The diaspora is returning. The United Nations has passed a reparation solution. China is projected to become the world's largest economy within the next 5 years. And consider this, 77% of African population is under the age of 35. By 2050, 1 in every 4 human beings will be an African. The demographic center of gravity is moving. The old order is fracturing, and something new is being born. This center intends to be at the heart of that movement, working with young Africans on the continent and also in the diaspora, who understand that the world being born will not be built by itself. The question is whether the world will change. The question is not if the world will change. It is whether will Africa be the architect of that change, or merely just subject. Africa does not wait for permission, it builds. Thank you.
This clap, I'm not impressed. A resounding one with cheers if we can. Woo! Thank you very much, Dr. Mario Nesbeth. At this point, I would want to acknowledge the presence of some relevant dignitaries present. We acknowledge the presence of Mr. Maurice Biggers. Mr. Maurice Biggers is the founder of Real Africa Foundation, an NGO that is supporting this program. We also acknowledge the presence of Mr. Samuel Dazi, a pharmacy technician who is present, and Mr. George Kobna Eda, a co-convener of CRAG. Infantefo Sede, Sankofa Wohoi Wonchi. We are going back to sing the anthem of our proud university. So kindly let's be upstanding as we sing the UCC anthem. We are going to sing with pride. We have a number of students present. We are going to sing it ourselves. Is there anyone here who can lead us sing? Hey! Any proud UCC students present? Oh.
Tell them they get 10 extra points in my class if they sing. So if we have a student here that is in my class, 10 extra points if you're able to perform.
Download the free Booking.com app today.
How am I supposed to cover all of this by the end of the week? None approved. Wow.
Let's clap for ourselves. Indeed, it was worth the wait. Let's humbly assume our seats. Let's resume our seats. At this juncture, we'll call on Mr. Rabbi Halevi to give us a remark from the Panafest Foundation. And we you not happy?
Thank you to our MC. First of all, I would like to begin by giving all honor, praise, and glory to the supreme creator of the universe, the one by whom we live, move, and have our being, and to the spirit of our great African ancestors, upon whose shoulders we stand, to our chair, and to all of our eminent personalities here at the dais, on the stage, and to those in the audience, and to our students, and to the African family. I greet you in the spirit of happy, blessed African Day, Africa Day. We know that we are gathered here today in reference to African Liberation Day, and I will not be long, but I do want to register that this is a very important event for all of us. How many of the students in here are attending for the first time an African Liberation Day program on May 25th, even though it's the 23rd, but it's in honor of the 25th? How many of our students in here is your first program on African Liberation Day, African Union Day, Africa Day, as all these names are operative, by a show of hands? So that means we do have a number of you who have experienced this, but more importantly, we have some new members. We're expanding numbers. And it's very important because as we think of African Liberation Day, I think that it was a very good historical narrative that we had from the head of our department here, the Center for African International Studies, by letting us know that this particular movement goes much further than the actual day that we're commemorating that took place 63 years ago. This is a movement that has been a part of the African spirit ever since the first African was captured or oppressed by any foreigner in any way. In our spirit, we always have sought for liberation. Now, I know that we use the term liberation in Ghana. We celebrate emancipation. We continue to talk about freedom. But one of the things I want to highlight here today is that term freedom. Freedom is often used, but when it's used, I'm not sure we're all on the same page in terms of its reference of meaning. One of the meanings I like to make reference to in the presence of students is that freedom, reminding us, is the compound word. Free means to liberate, and dome means the mind. So when we say liberate or liberation, we're really talking about freeing up the mind. And this is what our chair also was highlighting, wondering whether or not we are really ready to receive reparative justice or reparations. That's a mental question in terms of psychology. For me, I would like to say that no, we are not totally ready to know the full answer of what we would do with reparations. And I think this in the name itself, reparation is founded upon repair. And we have to acknowledge that we've suffered some very serious psychological and spiritual damage as the African family. Actually, so far that we've suffered for centuries being classified outside of the human family. If many of you who are students of history and study some of the African struggles that we've had on the continent, as well as what has been identified now in the diaspora off the continent, many of our struggles have been predicated upon human rights, Africans being respected as human beings. In fact, for almost 5 centuries now, we've had Europeans classifying Africans outside of the human family. And with that classification, they treated us outside of the human family. They acted like we were outside of the human family. And we find ourselves struggling just to be accepted inside the human family so that we can begin to struggle for our dignity as human beings in whichever way we describe ourselves, whether ethnically, nationally, or just racially. And so when we use any of these terms, today to say reparative justice or reparations, we must keep it in our mind clear that the key word in the foundation is to repair. And being a part of some of the discussions to speak about this year's program, we thought that it was appropriate that we discuss the term reparative justice and reparations because the president of Ghana, our president right here, led the petition in the UN not long ago to call to account the body of the world to take a decision to define the North Atlantic slave trade as the worst crime against humanity. And that means that we cannot leave that just to one leader. It has taken all these years for us to get to the point that one African leader would lead this discussion and lead this petition at the UN, and it is nobody any less than our own president of Ghana carrying on the tradition of Ghana's tradition at the UN, starting with the first president of Ghana, Asajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. This needs to be highlighted in a university here in Ghana with students who are studying. Our studying needs to be connected with a sense of continuity of our struggle as a people. I'm making a few comments in behalf of Panifest, and so I think that it's important to note that Panifest was established right here in Ghana, right here in Cape Coast, by an indigenous daughter, mother, auntie, sister from the soil from Cape Coast, Dr. Efua Sutherland. And part of the mission was to try to reunite the African family. And in its first edition, it even tagged on to it the reemergence of African civilization. And I didn't recognize when I really came on the stage here, I have a sister I haven't seen in a long time, Dr. Julian Walker. And we remember you, Doc, in the early days of Panifest. I think the last time I seen you was in South Africa. And I think it's important to note that when we have institutions on the ground like Panifest, who's been dedicated to the issue not only of Pan-Africanism, but reuniting this African family, as well as the reemergence of African civilization for the past 34 years with 17 editions housed right here in Cape Coast. And in addition to that, 28 editions of celebrating Emancipation Day. We now must move to how do we make that connection with a new generation of young African people, not seeing these as disjointed celebrations and festivals and conferences, but how are these observances connected with a new generation of vibrant Africans who are in a position to position Africa in a position that we haven't seen in the last 5 centuries. No matter what you read in history about our ancestors and their greatness and their brilliance, you, the young people, today have the opportunity to be the best generation of Africans ever produced in our history. I'm not saying that to make you feel good. I'm saying that now science has proved through the study of DNA that each and every one of us possess the DNA composition of all of our ancestors. And it means that because we are alive today and we are here today, we are the sum total of all their genius if we would look within the center of ourselves and rely on that genius and not foreign invasion into developing our mind and consciousness to be like any other people other than ourselves. We can never be perfect Europeans. We can never be perfect Asians, but we can be perfect Africans. And we can never ever be our best self until we are trying to be ourselves. So it starts with the knowledge of self, and that's the greatest liberating power any one of us can have. So when we attend sessions like this, let's take this very serious. Let's take it like we're coming to perform another exercise, another ritual in freeing up our mind and centering us in our Africanness, and not being proud, not being afraid, nor being ashamed, nor being shy, and celebrating your African self and your racial pride. Don't let nobody ever make you apologize for loving yourself as an African, for being yourself as an African. Now that pride is beginning to show, and the world is seeing if we can influence the world with our music, with our rhythm, with our swagger, make the world even pull down their pants and show their underwear and drawers something foolish, wear our hats around backwards. If we can influence the world to do that, what about if we turned our minds around straight and decided ourselves as African people, and we can take our place on the global stage and influence the world based upon our African creativity and our African genius? We have that capacity, not only to go back in Sankofa and do what our ancestors did. That is only the foundation for us to do what the world hasn't even thought of and haven't even dreamed of yet, because it's new and it's in you, and let's produce it and manifest it. That's the challenge. We don't need to go back and try to build a pyramid again. We need to think, what is the next step beyond the pyramids in this day, in this time, in this age? These are the things that have to come out of your generation. So if we celebrate a Sergeant for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, if we celebrate a Malcolm X, El Hajj Malik Shabazz, if we celebrate a Martin Luther King, a Sekou Touré, or His Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie, they did a work to put us in a position of where we are today. Now, what are we going to do with that work to take our struggle to the next level and really be free? And that's what reparations should mean to us. How are we going to repair the damage that has been done to us? And that can only begin when we acknowledge that a damage has been done to us. And with that repaired mind, that repaired sight, that repaired soul, then we can come up and answer our chair's question: what does reparations look like, and what form will it take, and what will we do with it when we get it? That can't happen with a mind that hasn't been prepared yet, Chair. Our mind has to be prepared, repaired, before we can go deep into that discussion and that subject matter. I will end on this note, and it's a very touchy note. You know, when we look at the advancement of China today, the advancement of India today, the advancement of many of the developing worlds as they were classified 50 years ago, and we see most of them have made faster and escalated progress in their attempt to come into the developed world, and we look at Africa, we shouldn't be over hard on ourselves to the fact that we haven't done anything. We've done a lot. When the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or at that time known as the Congo, Patrice Lumumba, actually the first president or prime minister, assassinated in 1961, enjoyed a very short stint as the prime minister of one of the richest basins and regions on the African continent. At the time of their independence, I think they said that it was not one single African military commissioned officer in the whole of the Congo. He said it wasn't more than 3 members of his cabinet that had graduated from university. There wasn't more than 30 people that they said in the Congo at that time that graduated from university. Look at the numbers of you in here. I'm saying that when independence came to us, we weren't at all, by most standards, ready. But we said we'd rather be free and make our own mistakes than to be subject and making mistakes by other people's decision. So with that calculation, calculate how many enlightened students we have all over the African continent that are graduating in the sciences and the arts, that are making a difference, that are now opening up their eyes, have a new consciousness. Not only just in Ghana, all over Africa. There's a teeming generation of young people that are demanding your time now. And you don't have to ask permission from an older generation to be. You just have to be. You just have to do. You just have to manifest. But make sure it's within the continuity and the vision and the discipline that you've inherited. So we can celebrate as African people that we've made some progress. But I want to say what I was going to say that may be somewhat offensive. I said when you go to China, you can't find a single religious institution with the image of the oppressors that they call God. You can't go to India and go in there and find a single religious institution in there where they see God in the image of their oppressors. And one of the highest principles of any society is how you see God and how you see yourself and what is your relationship. And Africa still has to deal with our institutions that promote racial identities and perfection outside of ourselves. We cannot escape that, because as much as we attend conferences, workshops, seminars, webinars, how it is that we see, worship, act, and perform the rituals of our God concept must be realigned. Africans had their own spirituality, their own knowledge of God, their own knowledge of morality before any of these foreign conquerors came in here and messed up our mind. So reparations must be thorough. No, it's not just about money, but it also is about money. But we must be clear when we talk about repairing the breach, repairing our mind, we must know what is broken. So I pray that we're up to the challenge. And in the words of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, I heard when the Ochami or the brother pouring the libations, he called out many names. Our MC said she heard W.E.B. Du Bois. But I heard Marcus Garvey. I heard Kwame Nkrumah. I heard Sekou Touré. I heard Nelson Mandela. I heard Winnie Mandela. I heard a lot of those names. And so we must also remember that they walked this path so that we can. And in the words of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, I leave you with these words: up, you mighty people, you can accomplish what you will. Thank you very much.
We can appreciate him better. Thank you very much. Thank you. Indeed, it is important that we free our minds and celebrate our racial pride as Africans. At this very juncture, we would want to acknowledge the presence of some lecturers from the Center for African and International Studies. We would acknowledge the presence of Dr. Alexander Wilson, a former director for the center, Dr. John Oti Amwa from the center, Dr. Evelyn Ajande, Dr. Charles Asante, Dr. Patrick Arthur, and we'll also acknowledge the presence of Nanette Etuahene, founder of On Our Watch Global. She's here with us. We would also acknowledge the presence of Samira Mariama. She's a recent immigrant from diaspora movement home to the continent. Let's appreciate her presence. Now we would call on Ajwa. I got the name right. Ajwa will call on Janna Bellows. She's a representative of CRAG to give us a remark.
Thank you very much. And let's give our Rabbi Halevi another round of applause. It's beautiful when we can honor our elders and give them their flowers when they are still here. My name is Ajwa, Janna Bellows, my government name. I greet you all in the name that's above every name. And it's because of him that I live, move, and have my being, and I stand before you today as a daughter, representing the love that's been engrafted in us all. With protocol being established, I would also like to honor all of you that are here today. Hello, future Prime Minister. Hello, future world leader. Hello, future world scientists who will crack codes and be the answer to the world's issues and problems. Hello to the future diplomats. Hello to the future peacekeepers and peacemakers. To our future military represented here today. To our future scientists who will pave the way. And to all of you that has been appointed for such a time as this, I greet you from the future. And with that said, I am a representative here of CREG. CREG stands for the Central Region African Ascendants Association of Ghana. I represent the Education and Awareness Committee. And these fine elders that are represented throughout CREG founded this particular association some 20-some years ago. But before that founding, they found themselves here representative of families that were coming to reconnect to this great land, the land that was prophesied that we would return to at certain intervals throughout this lifetime. I stand here as a representative, a daughter who also belongs to that diaspora, that unclaimed child, the one who was stripped of identity, the one who was renamed, the one who was sold, enslaved, if you will, represented within my body is the United Nations of what we know as today's Africa. In order for me to identify where I originate from, and I'll tell the story, here is the testimony. We have to take what is called DNA tests. See, some of you may know the tribes that your forefathers came from. You may know the territories that your people migrated to throughout this continent. You have a name that identifies you with your maternal line, with your paternal line, that has been unchanged throughout centuries. But then there was a remnant that was taken from these very lands. There was a plan, there was a plot, and there was a purpose. As we argue and deliberate as to who and the why and the where and the how come and who was responsible, we know one thing, that there were a people that were taken, stolen, sold, whatever, however you want to label it for these times. Identity stripped. Told that we were another people. Somebody else is cosplaying us right now. Stories for other days. But as we come back together and realize our true and intent and innate purpose in the earth, there's an appointed time for that. The DNA test that I took for my maternal line returned me to this continent through a tribe called the Tvucc out of Cameroon, a royal bloodline, who also was victim to colonization, invaders who came in, snatched up some of the finest of the people, enslaved them, just like there are doors of no return at Elmina and Cape Coast and Port Arthur. There are also doors of no returns up and down the west coast of this continent. So my maternal line was taken out of Cameroon, and they were shipped just like everybody else was shipped from those doors of no returns, those ports. Bimbia is the port. I'm yet to return there, but they have sent the invitation for the return in December. The point being is this: there is nothing that they could ever do to repay that. Nothing. Because what they could give us tangibly rests right beneath your very feet. You already have it. It's the gold, it's the bauxite, it's all the precious minerals. and we're worth more than that. I stand here as a daughter in representation of a people that have returned with one mission, one assignment, to reunite with our people, to reunite and remember and recall, but do so humbly, not as a brony, but as your cousin that's been gone for a long time, but now has returned. And so together, what was done up and down the West Coast, we can repair that, but we first have to deal with self. And that's loving one another, respecting one another, and recognizing that we all have a part to play. So it's up to you, world leaders. It's up to you, future scientists. Let's get some stuff in our veins that won't take us out. Okay? You go to those tables and deliberate and be the peacekeepers that we need. So when we create what we create it to produce and give life. On that note, peace, love, and we can do this because we are one team and one dream. We're one people called by his name, Yeshua HaMashiach.
Thank you, Ajwa. Indeed, we need to exhibit peace and love as Africans. At this point, we would acknowledge the presence of Mr. Ebenezer Agri, the College Registrar for the College of Humanities and Legal Studies. You're welcome, sir. An announcement to our ASP 154 students. After this program, you meet Dr. Asante. All ASP 154 students, you meet Dr. Asante after the program. Thank you. We'll call on the founder for the Real Ghana Foundation to give us his remarks, Mr. Maurice Biggers.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I bring you greetings. My name is Maurice Biggers, and I'm going to first give thanks and praise to the Almighty Creator God for bringing us here today and bringing this beautiful crowd of you beautiful students here today with us. Give yourselves a hand. Give yourselves a hand for coming out. We're over 700 of us here today. And that's an accomplishment in and of itself. And so I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to sponsor this event once again. And I couldn't do it by myself. So some really special people, I want to make sure that we say their names and acknowledge them. These are people who gave money towards this program today. So Brother Bear, Brother Ken, Brother Jack, Sister Hawa, Dr. Obing. Dr. Obing is a Ghanaian who is the best plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills. That's your brother, Dr. Obing, who contributed. My brother-in-law, Curtis Minor, Matt, Sister Molana Skinner, Otto Day, Dr. Mary Minor. Dr. Mary Minor is the pastor of Brookings Kirkland AME Church of Los Angeles. That's my sister. Mother Erna from the AAAG. Diallo Sumbri from the Adinkwa Group. Michael A. Jordan, that's the father of Michael B. Jordan, the greatest actor in the world. He also lives in Ghana and loves Ghana. Oasis Beach Resort, Brother Elijah and Takia here, and Kosa Beach Resort. And St. Elsewhere Beach Resort, Brother Damian D. Smith is here as well. And we thank you all and we acknowledge your gift so that we can be here today. And as we talk about reparations, I want you to know that Nana Kwabena Nketia sent me a message, and it was the president of France saying to his people that we need to talk about reparations. So it used to be a taboo for any European leader to speak of reparations because they know what that means, and they know that means that what they have broken that they need to repair. And that's more than just politically, but economically as well. But what I'm saying to you all is that the future of Africa will not depend on how others treat us, support us, or invest in us. We must invest in ourselves. So let me tell you about how I fell in love with Ghana. So I came here and a young man said, Uncle Maurice, we're going to take you to the hood. Well, I'm originally from South Central Los Angeles. It's a pretty tough place. So when you say the hood, I said, oh, that's where they do the killing and the shooting at. And he said, huh? Oh, no. We don't do that. We don't kill each other here. We don't shoot each other here. We don't even have guns. And I said, wow, man, I just couldn't believe that it was against the rules for another Ghanaian man to punch a man in the face. We can disagree, we can yell and scream, but we don't hit each other. But when I really saw that in practice, it touched me because it showed me how far we have really fallen from grace. And what you have here is something really special because you don't shoot each other, you don't kill each other. You see each other as brothers and sisters, not as the ops, okay, as they say in the vernacular. So then the young man told me, he said, Uncle Maurice, my father taught me to have respect for every man's God because every man's got one. So the Christians and the Muslims and the traditionalists live side by side here in Ghana in peace and in harmony. And then he said respect for the ancestors. And the ancestors are the ones that preceded us in life and paved the way for us and preceded us in death and that are still watching over us. Respect for the ancestors. And I submit to you that some people want us to respect their ancestors more than our ancestors. And our ancestors were the greatest of all time. And all we have to do is remember exactly what Rabbi said, that we are our ancestors. And if they could put an S curve in the largest river in the world, the Nile River, thousands of years ago, what can't we do if we put our minds to it, if we truly believe in ourselves? And then the young man said, and my father told me that we should respect the elders. And the elders is anybody older than you, whether it's 1 year or 100 years. Uncle Maurice, we're taught to have respect for our elders. And then we're taught to have respect for ourselves and for everybody else. I found a culture of people, this people, the Ghanaian people, who try to practice peace as a way of life. And I think that is so special and so wonderful that you see each other as brothers and sisters. And I'm telling you that it's always been the students. It's always been the students. The students are the spark that light the fire that changes the nation, okay? One of you out there in the sound of my voice should hear me and heed the call and say, what would Nkrumah do? He would change the system. He would make it more equitable and more fair. What would the Big Six do? They would change the system. They wouldn't sit around and wait for somebody else to do it. You do it. You be the change. You build the nation. You build the country. You build the town that you want to live in, that you want to see. You build the world that you want to live in, that you want to see, and you have it in you. And I'll leave you with this, because we are the greatest. And I want you to say it with me. Say, I am the greatest. I am the greatest. I am the greatest. I am the greatest. It's because you are the greatest, because God is in you, God is through you, God is for you, and wherever God is, there can be no imperfection. God bless you on African Liberation Day 2026.
Let's appreciate him once again. We would acknowledge the presence of Mr. Frank Tvucc, Advocacy Ghana. Mr. Frank Tvucc. Madam Gifty Nyomi, pardon me if I get the name wrong, Coastal TV, the CEO for Coastal TV. And Dr. Ben Okra, Forum Executive Director, Ghana Philanthropy Forum Executive Director. Let's welcome him, Dr. Ben Okra. At this juncture, we'll call on Akumapa Cultural Troupe to give us a performance. Akumapa Cultural Troupe from Elmina. They have journeyed with us since last year during the maiden edition of the African Liberation Day celebration here at the University of Cape Coast. I entreat you all to enjoy the performance. I trust them. If you feel like standing, please stand. If you want to jump, jump. But make sure you don't step on anybody's toes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's give them a clap. Let's appreciate them. A resounding applause for Akumapa Cultural Troupe. A resounding applause. Woo! Applause for Akumapa Cultural Troupe. I told you so. Thank you very much. Let's give them a thunderous applause. They'll be back. They'll be back. Woo! The unstoppable Akumapa Cultural Troupe. From the Akumapa Cultural Troupe. Thank you, Akumapa, for lighting up this room. Thank you. Akumapa says I should inform you that this is just the beginning. They will be back. Thank you for charging up this room. Thank you very much, Akumapa. At this point, we'll listen to a summary of the President's speech at the UN conference on March 24th, 2026. And to do that for us, we'll call on Ms. Esther Aqua, a National Service Person from the Center for African and International Studies. Let's appreciate her. Let's clap for her as she comes.
Thank you so much. Protocol duly observed. A representative of the Vice President and also Honorable MP, distinguished guests, distinguished dignitaries, respect lecturers, and ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor and privilege to stand before you this day. With permission from the chair, I will humbly read to you the excerpt from the speech delivered by our noble President John Dramani Mahama at the United Nations on 24th March 2026. Please, before I go ahead and read, this speech you're about to hear was delivered by President John Dramani Mahama of Ghana at the United Nations on 24th March 2026 during a high-level event on reparative justice. President Mahama was speaking in support of a resolution calling for the trafficking and enslavement of Africans to be declared the gravest crime against humanity. And I read Exempt 1, Language and Truth. President Mahama opens with a fundamental challenge to the language we use when we speak about slavery. And I quote, "Truth begins with language, with a power that words hold to shape consciousness, to shift perspective, and to propel action. I therefore offer this truth as a starting point. There is no such thing as a slave. There were human beings who were trafficked and then enslaved by people who believed they could own those human beings as chattel, as their personal property. The entire transatlantic slave trade was designed to deny African people their humanity. And that denial was premised on a racial hierarchy with no basis in fact or science. A racial hierarchy that deemed whiteness superior and blackness inferior, end quote. I now move to Exempt 2, the purpose of the resolution. He then explains why this UN resolution matters and what it means for the global community. And I quote, "The resolution allows us as a global community to collectively bear witness to the plight of the 18 million men, women, and children whose homes, communities, names, families, hopes, dreams, futures, and lives were stolen from them over the course of 4 centuries. I speak these words today, not only for Ghana, but also in solidarity with the rest of Africa, the Caribbean, Latin America, the wider diaspora, and indeed, all people of conscience, all people of good conscience throughout the world. This resolution is a pathway to healing and reparative justice. This resolution is a safeguard against forgotten, end quote. Let us now move to Exempt 3, the violence of enslavement. The president then describes in plain, unflinching terms what enslaved Africans were subjected to. And I quote, "They were forced with their limbs chained and shackled onto the cargo hold of a ship. They remained naked, packed like sardines. During the month-long journey through the Middle Passage, Not all those who were loaded onto the ships survived the voyage. 10 to 15% of enslaved people died in the Middle Passage. Whenever a ship did arrive at its destination, the enslaved people, still naked, were taken to the market where they were inspected and appraised like livestock. Once they were on the plantation where you could work and live, they were stripped of their names. No longer Fatal, Bubakar, Kofi, Nanayao, Emeka, or Hamisu. They were given names like Ben, Jemima, Toby, or Mary, end quote. Let me walk to you Attempt 4, the danger of erasure. Moving to the present, President Mahama warns against the active erasure of this history in education systems today. And I quote, "Erasure begins with language. When words are used as a sleight of hand, gaslight, to trick you into doubting what you know to be true. In the United States, Black history courses are being removed from school curricula. Schools are being mandated to stop teaching students about slavery, segregation, and racism in African history courses. Books about those topics are being banned in schools and public libraries. Earlier, when discussing the importance of this resolution, I said it was a safeguard against forgotten. This is the type of forgotten that I was referring to. End quote. Let us now deal with the last excerpt, which happens to be the closing one. Hope and human dignity. President Muhammad closes with a call to reclaim African dignity and a vision of hope grounded in shared humanity. And I quote, "When discussing slavery and its resulting institutions and practices, we must always start by reclaiming racial equality. The dignity of Africans, the humanity of our ancestors who were enslaved, and as a matter of course, our own humanity. The greatness that is within us will always outweigh the injustice that have been visited upon us. Our survival is a testament to that fact. Our human compassion binds us the one to the other, not in pity or patronizingly, but as human beings who have learned how to turn our common suffering into hope for the future. Truth begins with language. I hope all of you will vote tomorrow to speak truth to power, so that together we can pass this historical resolution and finally acknowledge the full horror of these transgressions against the humanity of approximately 15 million human beings who were enslaved. Thank you. End quote.
Thank you, Ms. Esther Aqua, for giving us a summary of the President's speech during the United Nations Congress on 24th March 2026. Some of us didn't listen, so thank you for that insightful summary. We'll call on the President for the Global Pan-African Movement to give us her remark and introduce the tape of Honorable Trevor Prescott, the Minister for Pan-African Affairs and Heritage, Barbados. Let's welcome Madam Julia Lynn Walker as she comes to give us her remarks. We can do it better. She's enjoying it.
Thank you very much, Ruth. And just to clear up, well, let me just start. We are very disappointed today that the Honorable Trevor Prescott, MP for Pan-African Affairs and Heritage for Barbados, is unable to attend due to a conflict in his schedule. It was very disappointing, but let me share with you that Minister Prescott is a veteran politician who is committed to Pan-Africanism. He rose from the ranks of the Caribbean Movement for Peace and Integration, a grassroots organization dedicated to Pan-Africanism in the Caribbean. And the organization has opposed the increased attacks against Cuba, the backward way in which many nations have caved in to the United States and the other Western nations, and strongly condemns also the terrorist attacks against Palestine and the Palestinian people. But we have a short clip for you this afternoon of the minister at an Emancipation Day program in Barbados last year. So please join me in watching this clip. There is a clip. Okay, maybe there isn't a clip. There is a clip.
Who lived in slavery from the 17th century, including government ministers, don't find it significant to be here this morning? I'm dealing with politics. Nobody from an opposition party don't want to be here this morning, the day of our freedom. Freedom is never absolute. We are in a transition period and we can consummate freedom. And therefore we have been through many different phases of the liberation struggle. And black people, look around you. Look around you. Look around you. Tell me, what do you see? Tell me, what do you see? Who is here? I'm not talking about blackness exclusively by the pigmentation of one's skin. It's a sense of consciousness. When you talk about who you are, how you can know who you are if you never read a text in history yet, especially about yourself. So you don't know greatness. You don't understand when we invite you here and we take the responsibility for coordinating this event. It is your evening. It is your freedom. So when we come here, and we honor General Busser, when you come here in this pool, you will look to your right and you see the home of Brantley Prescott. Without the required signs on the house, so you will know who lived there. Some people don't even know who is Brantley Prescott. And if you go to my left, you will see the home of one of the greatest Africans ever lived. The man called King Jaja. You will learn, and probably from this same podium at some point, the significance of a man like King Jaja.
Okay, thank you. We give please a note of applause for the minister. So first, of course, let me say thank you very much to Dr. Mario Nesbitt, who conceived and gave leadership to the process that allowed this today to happen. And also to our Minister Emmanuel from the university, Professor Emmanuel Tekron, our Minister of Parliament for Cape Coast North, the Honorable Kwamana Minta Nyarko, distinguished fellow program participants, honored guests in the audience, and certainly you who have decided today to spend your time with us. I can only say, to start, I am extremely honored beyond words, to be in Ghana today for the first African Liberation Day after universal acknowledgement and acceptance of African human enslavement as the greatest crime against humanity. You've no idea what it means to so many of us. I also want to acknowledge Mrs. Gifty Nyomi. Is she still in the audience? Please stand up, because come on. We earlier you had a lot about who you will be in the future, whether you are future ministers or doctors or government leaders or whatever. And I want you to think about how you will get there. And you will get there through family. Nuclear, extended, created family is everything. And Gifty is my family. I really want to just share with you that we met in 1994. How many of you were born in 1994? How many of your parents were born in 1994? So you have an idea of how long we have been friends. It's important today to be clear on what your values are and to know who else has the same values you have, and then you work on it. Because there will come a time that you will need to pick up the phone, or you will pick up the phone and you will hear the words, how can I help you? What can I do? How can I support you? Family is critical, and this is my family here in Cape Coast. But most especially, I want to thank those of you who made the effort to be here today. And now another to raise your hands. How many of you here as part of a class? Okay, now, okay, I heard this earlier thing about a class. Okay, and how many of you have taken a course at the Center for African International Studies? Okay, so you see how many more still need to go, all right? But basically, this is an opportunity of like-minded people to come together to discuss what African Liberation Day means to us now and in the future, particularly under the theme of Global Africa, Reparative, Injustice, and International Law. And you've heard from a number of different people. We have different ideas about our culture and how we organize, and we want to share that we've had a number of different organizations that have been created. Most specifically, we've been given, we have the African Union, which is the evolution of the Organization of African States. But I want to start first with what is Global Africa? And for a number of years, the AU, the African Union, really thought that Africans in the diaspora should not be a part of Africa, that the African Union was only for continental Africans. But then the AU realized that someone did the math on the contributions of continental Africans to the continent. And the math wasn't mathing. You know what that is. And what was the discovery? It was that the Africans in the diaspora, continental Africans, who directly have a country of origin, were contributing more than 5.1% of the continent's GNP, the gross domestic product, GDP, and that this money equals about $95 billion. That's one of those numbers that people like to throw around. $95 billion is coming from the rest of the world into Africa. And this remains the largest source of external funds of anything else. There's no country that gives this much. There's no financial institution that gives this much. It is people contributing to people. And so this money, hundreds and thousands of dollars and francs and euros, they were carried home very often each December and given to families and friends and communities to build schools and clinics and whatever else the community needed. And this was really the impetus for the development of the 6th region of the AU. Because the government, many of the governments needed access to that cash. So in the Constitutive Act of the African Union of July 2000, the proposed amendment stated that the African diaspora should be invited and encouraged for full participation of the AU as an important part of our continent in building the African Union. And then the discussions began, because who were we really talking about? Who was being pulled into this process? And scholars have identified people going back as far as the 4th, 5th, and 6th centuries who were involved in enslavement, but who were also voluntary traders, who were seafarers, and who independently made their way around the world. So from the beginning to Arabia and the subcontinent of India, to the 16th and 19th centuries with the mass enslavement, to the Caribbean and North America, until the post-World War II diaspora that came principally from the Caribbean to Europe, and then the post-war diaspora from the 1990s, and then most recently, what people are calling the cosmopolitan diaspora. And these are people from the 1970s who have come because of political and economic change in their countries, some because they didn't want to, but others because they did want to. They voted with their feet and came to these other countries. So now, how many are we? And the rough estimates, and you heard some of the things earlier, is we're 160 to 200 million people worldwide. 160 to 200 million people worldwide. And only 43 million of that is in the United States, but you hear about us a lot because we have a big mouth. So we, are out here talking and carrying on. But we're only 43 million of that 160 to 200 billion. And just under 70% of those are in the Caribbean. South America purports not to keep statistics, but they're about 2 million, 3 million there. But Brazil has the largest number of African descendants anywhere in the world outside of the continent of Africa. All right? Europe keeps better statistics, but they also delineate between people of African descent born in their countries and then what they call Black Sub-Saharan Africans. Go figure. But then there are also the people of Asia, both China, the subcontinent of India, and other parts of Asia. So we are also the people who speak the most languages in the world. We are English-based, French-based, Spanish-based, Portuguese-based. It all depends on the country that colonized and subjugated us. We have developed creoles and patois. We have combined languages so that we're able to facilitate our existence better. We are Muslim, Ammonists, Buddhists, Christians, and atheists. We have ritual language that is used for our religions and for our communal rights. We have contributed to most languages with specific structures and words. And in any geographical region, you can find layers and layers of complexity with all these different categories coming together in different ways. I hope you're beginning to see how difficult the representation may be in defining the sixth region and having full participation for all the different people who are Africans around the world. And that's as true for Ghana and the 17th region as it is for the AU and the 6th region. But now I will come back to the comments that Prof made this morning and the question of reparatory justice, because it is a bit much, all right? And the issue revolves around, once the concept of involuntary, I had no choice, I did not agree, is introduced, then somebody did something to somebody else without their consent. I did not agree to have you do this to me. So Africans were forcibly taken from their homes. Prof mentioned that. African communities were disrupted and often destroyed when the best of their people were taken from them. Enslaved Africans were denied their humanity, denied freedom, denied opportunities. So reparatory justice is complex and multidimensional. At its heart, reparatory justice seeks to make amends for past wrongs and to provide redress. How can we correct those past wrongs for both the physical, material, and moral damage to individuals, groups, and nations? So what are the core components? Basically 5. So this is reparatory justice, 5 areas. 1, restitution. Restitution means, how can I return the person to the original state before the injustice happened? All right? It often happens with stolen property or rights. I return the property, I restore someone's voting rights. That's restitution. Compensation is providing financial redress. It looks at what was lost, perhaps physically or mentally or even emotionally. And then rehabilitation says, how can we, recognizing the injury, make someone whole to the best of our ability, but really we're just helping them get along because we can't address the original injury. And then satisfaction, this is an interesting one. Satisfaction simply says, I need you to recognize my honor and dignity. I need you to understand who I am and in the process acknowledge your guilt. So I worked in South Africa for a number of years, and it was amazing how many people knew the military police, the askari, the army, the prison commander, knew the person who had done them injury, who had killed a loved one, who left them damaged, and they did not want any money. They did not want, all they wanted was a discussion that said, how did you not see me? All they wanted was a discussion that said, do you recognize my humanity and will you apologize? That was simply all people wanted who came. They said, we want to sit down face to face, and I want them to say to my face, I see you, I am sorry for what I did, I apologize. So that is one of the major areas of satisfaction. And then the last one for what we really want to get to is this question of non-repetition. So how do we institute social change, structural change, so that the injury, that type of injury, never happens again? So if you say today, well, we would never have slavery, Well, there are very strong arguments that we currently do. There was a brother who was here during gender and conflict. There's a lot of discussion right now about trafficked women being a form of enslavement. So there's still slavery, globally, but how do we address it? So, what does this look like? Fact, Africans were taken from their homes, their communities, their villages. If we look at restitution, we have to say who was taken. And what the answer would be, we don't know specifically, but we have very good estimates of the numbers, and we know their descendants. And because we cannot restore people to their original condition, we can come to something close. And what would that look like? If you look at compensation, again, we don't know who was taken, but we know the impact. And there are economic models that show, but for the taking of this large number of people from this community, the community would have evolved economically in a totally different way. And therefore, that's what we would use as our guides. If we look at rehabilitation, one of the new areas that is being discussed and appreciated is this question of inherited trauma. And inherited trauma says that because of things that happened to my grandparents and my parents, I actually feel it as part of who I am. Whether it's you say it's in my bones, or it's in my body, or it's in my genes, or it's my mental makeup, I carry that damage. So when sometimes people, feel a particular way, it's not because they can't identify a particular issue that has happened that day, but it's something that has come down to us through our being. And so, so our genes. So inherited trauma is being recognized in order to provide psychological and social support. And then there's satisfaction. And part of the satisfaction now would be an acknowledgement that this happened, and this is what happened at the UN recently. And now, what are the steps that need to be put in place to make sure that that stays that way? The last one, in terms of guarantees of non-repetition, a legal system, a lawyer, you want to go to law, but legal systems, former structures, and social conditioning that make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's when we look at folks who are in the diaspora. But what happens when we look at Ghana? What do you think happens when we look at Ghana? If we take the same facts, people were taken from the community, and the communities were disrupted and often destroyed because people were stolen. And if you look at restitution, the first question has to be, what communities? Who suffered the damage? And unfortunately, many African societies fail to acknowledge that they were, in fact, affected by human enslavement. So how many of you have heard in your families stories about how your village participated in some way or was affected in some way, or even the surrounding community was affected in some way? So that's one of the things we'd like for you to take back to your community and really begin to ask the questions, why, if you've heard the stories, try to hear more. If you haven't heard the stories, the question becomes, why not? Why haven't we been told about this? Because there's silence on many parts. And then if we look at compensation, it's the same issue. If we don't talk about how a particular community was affected, then it's very difficult to talk about what should be done instead. However, there are some models, and Walter Rodney, how many of you read How Europe Underdeveloped Africa? Anybody? Okay, put that on your reading list. How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, Walter Rodney. But Walter Rodney, a number of years ago, made a very clear analysis that showed the impact of enslavement on villages, because the village would have been in a much higher place decades later, but for the rupture. And then in terms of restitution, it's the same as above. If we don't talk about it, how can we repair it? How can we make the changes? We have to begin to talk. And so with rehabilitation, and we look at, the psychological impacts, but also some legal issues, particularly where there are remains or artifacts abroad in various cultural institutions. And that is a major area. In terms of satisfaction, again, there has to be acknowledgement. Does a community talk about it? And then what is the satisfaction that people want, given this disruption? The last one, which earlier I said was very important in terms of Africans who were not on the continent, but for Africans on the continent, the last one was a question of guarantees of non-repetition. And if you think, well, again, we're not going to have human enslavement, they're going about it a whole different way, and we really got to wake up, guys. We got to wake up, okay? And so right now, and it's happening in Ghana, it's happening in other countries, we have Western nations using different forms of financial and political coercion to make Ghanaian government and other governments do their bidding. And so this is a form of re-enslavement under another name. And then unless we are alert to it and discuss it, then we will not be able to block it in the future. And unfortunately, very often there's some very, draconian measures. But so reparations, per se, reparations is a term that comes under compensation and rehabilitation. But overall, the area is reparatory justice, because we want to make sure that we have change. All right? So I want to take just a moment and talk about this in the context of a particular group. And so this discussion is really, everybody can listen, we're all here, but I just want to really speak to, with, and about my sisters for a few minutes. Because when we talk about reparatory justice, earlier I said, or I didn't say, I'm a part of the Global Pan-African Movement, and we are involved in supporting Pan-Africanism in all, we support Global Pan-Africanism from a grassroots perspective with progressive forces, and we are very concerned about specific sectors, such as women, and environmental justice workers, and others. So I just want to take a moment and now look at the role particularly of women of African descent and health from a reparatory justice perspective. That sounds weird? I'll try. Okay. So African women in matrilineal, matrifocal, or patrilineal societies have played key roles in building their communities. We know this, we've seen this, we understand that. We have been at the forefront to retain both the spiritual values of the community, and we've supported community stability, personal and social autonomy. We have built important shrines and cultural institutions. We have led collective work, cooperatives, village councils, and urban governments. We have led revolutions, and we have been staunch workers in the kitchen. Yet today, Black women around the world are slowly dying. Am I being dramatic? Perhaps, but not really. And I'm looking just at two issues. One is pregnancy-related and infant-related deaths. All right? So pregnancy-related mortality rates among Black women are over 3 times higher than the rates for white women, particularly in North America. And pregnancy-related deaths are those deaths that occur within 1 year of pregnancy. You with me on that? So pregnancy-related mortality is the rate of death per 1,000 births. So the rates of mortality is 3 times more. We die 3 times more than white women. Is that because of our genes? No. And then 1 in 5 of these deaths occur during pregnancy. 25% occur during labor, and or within the first week of postpartum, and then about almost 50% occur between 1 week and 1 year postpartum. So the first group, 20% die during pregnancy before they go into labor, and then 25% during labor or the first week postpartum, and then 50% after. So why is this? There's a similar statistic for our babies, and it looks at, again, the same number of babies, and there are, again, higher shares, higher rates of preterm, that they have higher shares of preterm births, low birth rate births, babies born underweight, and births for which they receive late or no prenatal care. So our babies are born, even when they're born in poor health. And when they're born in poor health, both the mother and the baby doesn't get care. So why is that? Our babies are dying, and they're dying, and we are dying, and it's occurring during what should be the most creative and profound experience of our existence. So recently, we in GPAM, the Global Pan-African Movement, had a discussion about this. And we looked specifically at Black women's health in the United States. And we looked at those undiagnosed health challenges, particularly focusing on uterine fibroids and endometriosis. The science students among you will explain later, all right? Because these are the two conditions that are often most normalized and ignored when talking to I'm about two. I'll get to two. Okay, Black women. All right. So we say because of this, when I say in terms of reparatory justice, what can we do? We need more community-based agencies. We need more internal resources. We need to validate our experiences based on the models of care that exist. We need to be able to reduce the challenges that women face. But most importantly, we need to listen to each other. We need to listen to ourselves. We need to make sure that Black women are heard within this environment. And so I'm cutting a bit. You saw the note come up. And I joked earlier with Prof, the dean there, that when the song came on, I said, I can't sing. So, and he said, well, he couldn't either. So we couldn't lead the song. We're trying to volunteer who's going to lead the song. So I want to share with you, just briefly, a few verses from a song by Andra Day. It's a song called Rise Up. I don't know who, may be familiar with it, but I just want to leave you with this note as we continue with the program. When the silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise you, we will take the world to its knees. We will move mountains, bring it to its feet, move mountains, and I'll rise up. I'll rise up like the day. I'll rise up. I'll rise up unafraid. I'll rise up. And I'll do it 1,000 times again for you, for you, for you, and for you. And all we need is hope. And for that, we have each other. We have each other, and for that, we will rise. We will rise, we'll rise. I'll rise up. I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I will rise up 1,000 times again, and we will rise up. We will rise high like the waves. We'll rise up in spite of the ache, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. We will rise up for you and you and you and you. Thank you. So thank you. I'm pleased at this time to bring to the podium your esteemed Member of Parliament for Cape Coast North, the Honorable Kwamina Menta Nyarku.
Thank you very much. Good evening to everyone. In painful today, opinion Guerrilla name Sasa. I'm humbled and privileged to have been part of the team that went to the UN with the president to make that statement, for which reason many of the countries were in favor of what the president has done. Let's give a round of applause to our president. He's done well. I was not meant to speak because I was invited as a guest of honor. So I'm here to honor the invitation. Unfortunately, I've been called to come and speak. And I also want to elicit some issues regarding reparatory justice as I deem appropriate. Any issue or discussion or any serious discussion that has to do with reparatory justice must first begin with the truth. If we don't believe in the truth, we will not understand exactly what is going on. Did slavery really took place? Yes, it did. That is the truth. Were our ancestors taken away forcefully and violently from Africa? Yes, they were. That is the truth. So if you forcefully take somebody away, enslave them, use them to build your economies, and they come in claiming that all the activities you've done over the years is about time, justice is also given. I want us to understand that they recorded that 12.5 million Africans left the shores of Africa to overseas. And it's documented in UNESCO that out of the 12.5, only 10.7 survived. That means that the remaining were either thrown overboard or were killed while they were working in their respective plantations and areas. The scale is really serious. There's evidence also to show that whatever has transpired over time is still visible. Education, housing, health, sports, everything across, there are always racial discrimination, hate speeches all over. Even now, when you watch some of the Premiership games, you hear people shouting, giving hate speeches against some black footballers or some black athletes. It is still ongoing. It's about time we change that narrative. And I'm very proud the president has been able to make us appreciate the fact that indeed reparatory justice is very, very important, and the UN has accepted that. Whilst I'm going to take my seat, I want us to appreciate the fact that reparatory justice should include one, full and formal acknowledgement that whatever they did was wrong, and for that matter, they take responsibility for that. The second one, it should be truth-telling and historical reconstruction. There are so many archival issues that they have there which has been distorted. It's about time we look at how we can reconstruct and tell the truth. The third one is restitution. The fourth one is rehabilitation and development. And the final one is compensation and structural reforms. In my opinion, reparatory justice is the means by which truth becomes responsibility and responsibility becomes repair. Thank you very much.
Truth becomes responsibility and responsibility becomes repair. Thank you very much, the Member of Parliament for Cape Coast North Constituency, Honorable Kwame Namintanyako. Let's appreciate him once again as he sits. Thank you very much. It's always thrilling to see him present at occasions here on campus because he is or was a lecturer here at the University of Cape Coast. And we are always pleased to have you present in our midst whenever we call on you, sir. Thank you. At this point, we'll call on Madame Julia Lynn Walker to present to us what she has to give. We'll know. So let's wait for her presentation. Let's appreciate her. A resounding applause. She is coming to give. We are glad to receive. So let's show that in our clap.
And just a minute. I don't think we've appreciated the MC today. Can we appreciate the MC? Very good, thank you. And certainly the MP said, we shouldn't always focus on big speeches, and we agree. Material culture is important. And so on behalf of the Global Pan-African Movement, I would like to present to CASE, the Center for African and International Studies, 2 laptop computers. Unfortunately, I only have one, and you're going to say, oh, she's fooling us. You don't have 2 in that box. There's only one, but the other is in Accra at the airport with my missing bag. So on Tuesday, I'll get that and make sure that he gets it. But please, Prof.
I quickly like to thank GPAM for their contribution. They have been instrumental from the very beginning in terms of this program. In fact, when GPAM first came to me earlier this year to say, let's do the program again this year, I said, my schedule is so hectic that I think I won't be able to do it. And so the chair actually came and spoke to me and said, you need to do this program. The center, it would bring some attention to the center and bring some awareness of the things that we need to work on. And so with our other partners, we decided to do the program. So thank you, GPAM.
Thank you, GPAM, for the presentation. We are glad to receive. And like Oliver Twist, we would always ask for more. We hope that next year we'll receive again. I would like us to appreciate the director for Center for African and International Studies. He's done so well. Thank you. I think he needs a standing ovation. Let's stand for him. Let's do that. Thank you, Dr. Mario Nisbet. Thank you for your proactiveness. Thank you for rolling everybody on board. Thank you for your proactive administration. God bless you. We would appreciate the presence of Brother Israel, an investor and a supporter for the 2026 African Liberation Day. Say a wave. We would love to see you. Thank you for supporting. We would also acknowledge the presence of Danisha Wright Esuman, CRAG Programs Director. Thank you, Madam. For the tremendous support of these 2 brothers, Brother Elijah and Brother Taki, owners of Oasis Beach Resort, Cape Coast, and Kosa Beach Resort, Ampeni Elmina. Thank you for your contributions always towards the Center for African and International Studies and the African Liberation Day celebration. We would acknowledge the presence of media persons present, Kesben TV, ITV, TV Africa, Eagle FM, and Sumpa TV. Thank you for coming. So we are being aired. Let's give a smile as our faces show on the televisions. Let's give a smile. Oh, I'm not seeing the teeth. Don't worry, Akumapa will come back for the performance. Okay. So at this point, we would listen to the closing remarks from the chairperson. So let's welcome.
Thank you. Well, I would attempt to summarize everything that has been said, even though it's going to be a very difficult one. Maybe I'll do it this way. Slavery actually did happen, and there were consequences. The issue is, should somebody be made responsible, or should somebody take responsibility for what happened? It has been established. we are asking for reparative justice. At least it has been acknowledged. As to whichever form it comes, we are not too sure. But whatever it is that comes, fine. But I still think, and the point that I made earlier, maybe I will make that point the last, it was like the first point to be raised, and then maybe the last point to be raised. Whichever form reparative justice comes to us, I think we should be ready to take advantage of whatever it is and then run with it. When Madame was going through the forms and she was talking about compensation, we had some small chat there. It's almost the same thing as if you are not ready to receive the compensation, or you have not planned on how to, for instance, use the compensation, you receive it, waste it, and then let's say a year after, you still be at the same position you were, or maybe even worse off, because you might even have added some debts to your system. So for me, I believe that, the way we do the things that we do should also change. We cannot continue behaving the same way that we have behaved when we were under all these kinds of stresses, and then there's reparative justice, and then we don't change the way we do the things we do. It rained for a few, maybe less than 2 hours in Accra yesterday. Most areas in Accra flooded. Something like this. If we still will build our cities the way we are going ahead. In fact, when whichever reparation, in whichever form, in fact, especially if there is a part that is compensation, if it comes, we are going to make the situation even worse than it is now, because then we have more, we have more cash at hand to simply go and misbehave. That's why I kept saying, we must show that we are ready to change. And that's very important for us. Yes, the reparation may come in whichever form, but do we respect ourselves enough to do what is right? On that note, thank you all for coming. And even though it took a little bit of time than we were expecting, but it has been very, very fruitful. And then we'll meet, I'm sure, God willing, next year. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The time spent here has been worth it. We would acknowledge the presence of TVUCC from the Public Relations Directorate, University of Cape Coast, Medal Photos, and ALD Media Team, the African Liberation Day Media Team. Thank you very much for your support. At this point, we would end We acknowledge the presence of Nana Kwame Tvucc, the chief of Elmina. Okay. Oh, like Oliver Twist. I asked for more, and the action-oriented man seated up here has shown action. He's giving generously to the organizing team. Say, should I name it? It's huge. Mansaribu. Please, let's thank him. A thunderous applause. It's way in my hand. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. God bless you. We least expected this. Next year, we'll call on you. So we'll end with an electrifying performance from the Akumapa Cultural Troupe. Akumapa Cultural Troupe, we are waiting. Give us some energy. Let's go home with the energy. We need it. Okay. So we'll take a group picture before Akumapa gives us the performance. A group picture. So we are taking the group picture now, and then Akumapa. I think they will take first and then we can join. Please come.